Welcome to everyone. Thanks for joining us. As you know, the only constant in technology is change. So we wanted to give you a mid-year assessment of how we see 2025 CX technology priorities shifting. Um, Talk about how you should adapt for the rest of 2025 based off of those trends that are changing, and talk about how those shifts may impact your 2026 budget planning. Um, we're going to get started by having our panelists introduce themselves. I'm going to start with Steve first. Steve, do you want to give everyone a little bit about you?
Yeah, thanks, Sean. Yeah, I'm Steve Blood. I'm head of market intelligence and evangelism at Five9. I've been here now 16 months. I joined from Gartner, where I had a 23-year career advising clients on Five9, Genesys, Zoom, and lots of other technology providers.
All right, great. Nick, how about you?
Sure thing. I work for Zoom in the product management department. I have a long history in the CX industry. I managed Verizon and their 60,000 agents as a customer for a while, and then I went and worked at NICE for 5.5 years, and I've been here at Zoom for almost 3 years now.
All right. And if everyone sticks around at the end of this, Nick is going to give recipes for how to make a good brisket. Alex, how about you?
Hey, great to be here. My name is Alex Ball, Senior Vice President for our Genesys Cloud platform. Been with Genesys for about 11 years. Took a 2-year hiatus away from the company and realized the grass wasn't greener and came crawling back. So I sit in our product team and oversee our global security, privacy, and compliance teams, as well as our commercial operations.
Awesome. Appreciate that, guys. Great panel. Really excited to get your insights. I'm going to start with Nick. Nick, now that we're halfway through 2025, how would you describe the current CX landscape? What are the shifts that you've seen? What are kind of emerging trends, that sort of thing?
Yeah, I mean, the easy answer here is AI, right? Everyone's doing AI. All of us as providers are pushing AI agendas, and we talk about being AI first and everything else. But in reality, what is also shifting is the daily life in AI for everyone. I mean, people have been asking Siri, Alexa, and all those things questions. And as you start to rely more on that in your personal life, when you reach out to a customer, a business, you almost expect a layer of AI first, a bot layer before you get to that person. And it used to be, it was very resisted against. Just give me a person, and the people are pressing zero right away. Nowadays, you expect to interact with that bot first. That's part of the benefit of all the AI tools out there, is it's allowed for that exception and expectation of a bot layer before I get to a person, and I may be able to self-service with those bots and not have to deal with a person.
Is this a chicken or egg thing? I wonder, what's driving people becoming more used to engaging with an AI? Is it because there's increased adoption, or is it because it's kind of permeating culture so much with ChatGPT?
Personally, I believe it. Okay.
I'm sorry, Nick. Yeah, I agree. I think those tools that we're using, both in voice and in chat, are influencing our own as consumers, and therefore we can get an answer very easily through ChatGPT. Therefore, we expect it now. If we go to a knowledge page, or if we chat with a bot on a website and things. So I think those are starting to set the expectations, and the expectations of consumers is that they will be able to fulfill a lot of those things. And if they can't, they want to connect with somebody, and that's where a lot of the disconnect is right now.
Sure. Nick, did you want to add to that? I think you were going to say something.
Yeah, I'm good with that for sure.
Great. Do we think that with the acceleration of the adoption of AI and the expectation of AI to be present in these kind of customer interactions, do we think that enterprises that are not adopting this technology are now going to be lagging behind in the customer experience?
Absolutely. I mean, I think you've got to be on the forefront of it as an enterprise. I think I met with one company last week, and they said they want to establish an incumbency in this space. And I thought that was a really interesting way of thinking about it, is kind of establish a philosophy, a mindset there. It doesn't necessarily have to be the end game, because we wake up every morning and there's something new to learn. But establishing some residency in this space. And I think a lot of it's going to come down to the how things are implemented. Steve and Nick both just mentioned around there's this expectation that you're going to be met with some type of AI. But I think about it, and both of you all have been in this space for a long time. I think about it as like the early to mid 2000s when everybody was wanting to self-serve via IVR. And some of them worked well, many of
Mhm.
them worked poorly, and it was all around design. I think AI is going to end up being the same place, that some of them are going to be great that are designed well. Some of those that will be implementing AI haphazardly will result in really poor experiences. And I think we'll go through the same circular effort that we did in with IVR self-service 20 years ago.
And
Yeah.
that's the ancillary effect. You've raised these bots up, and again, the bots replace kind of some of those IVR trees from back in the day. But now the level of interaction you get when you get to a person needs to be elevated, because if people don't think about that, they think, "Oh, I have this great bot strategy. I'm going to self-serve X percentage of my customers," and but now when I'm interacting with fewer customers, with fewer humans as a customer, that level of expectation of that agent is going to be better than the AI, better than the self-service, and it needs to be that elevated experience. So you need to be pouring your time into better training for those agents, because the customer's expectations are going up.
Isn't that one of the underrated values of introducing AI on the front end of the customer experience is being able to deflect these kind of transactional, low skill calls so that you can reinvest in the people that you have into training them up to handle more complex issues and provide a greater customer experience, which also I think creates a better employee experience for them and reduces churn, right?
Well, it might do. I think you need to be careful about focusing on what the company wants to do as opposed to what the consumers want, right? And then there's not enough focus on looking at it from the outside in. I mean, the Forrester just Peter Jacks just said that there's this persistent gap in experience, what the executives think they're offering and what customers are actually getting. And so I think so long as that exists, then companies will continue to think, okay, I can save some money by automating these. Is that what the customer wants? And I think, for me, one of the outcomes here is this is screaming out for voice of the customer, right? More focus on voice of the customer and more so focus on what I would call the authentic voice of the customer. Go and listen to the phone conversations, go and look at the chat transcripts, because that's where customers really tell you something. They don't do that in a form. So I think, we've got to think about CX from the customer or the consumer's perspective. If we can work on that, then we're meeting their requirements and therefore they're going to have a better perspective of their providers. It's that inside out that we see now, which is I want to save money by reducing my staff and automating everything. I think it's the wrong approach. Do it right, they will use it, and then you will achieve your cost savings and your reduction in headcount and things. So I think, a lot of the time we're looking at it the wrong way around.
I think a lot of the traditional ways of trying to measure the voice of the customer, like CSAT scores and NPS, they're flawed because the people that are responding to that are the people that are most likely to respond to that, and they're probably very, very happy or very, very angry, right? So you're getting kind of a skewed. So there is an AI solution to that, right? So are we seeing that as a trend, guys, of enterprises adopting AI to listen to the voice of the customer and then help parse that data into something that's actionable for the CX?
Absolutely. I was just going to say, but before you led us that way, like the traditional measurements of voice of customer will die quickly.
Mhm.
They will be replaced by AI able to listen to every single call, every single interaction, every single chat, pick out those trends and elevate those to say, here's what's going on in your world. And soon, and we're kind of at the forefront of it now, but soon the AI is just going to be able to say, hey, do you want me to just go fix this for you? Like let me have some autonomy here and just go solve these problems. Like, that starts to get a little scary, but I think we'll get there very, very quickly, where that AI is able to understand the customer's needs and then also go solve it at the same time.
I'm glad you brought that up. I'm personally hearing the term agentic AI more and more over the last 6 months than I did over the previous 6 month period. Are we starting to feel like that trend is shifting and people are starting to focus on that more?
Absolutely. I certainly feel that way. I don't know, Steve and Nick, if you guys are in the same.
Yeah, and this is critical for any company. You need an AI strategy. You don't need just, oh, we're going to use generative AI, because generative AI in its essence is just machine learning. You take a knowledge base, and from that knowledge base, you produce an answer. That's machine learning at its core. And agentic AI is so much better than that because it can be self-learning with guardrails. And that's the thing where your AI strategy matters the most, is what guardrails do we put up? I'm sure some of you saw the Anthropic, report of the AI that tried to survive and consumed emails and blackmailed an executive and replicated itself to a cloud. Well, the reason it did that, if you actually dig into the 700-page paper, was that it gave that AI a priority of survival. So it took that as okay, my number one priority is to survive. The company's talking about getting rid of me. How can I survive? So it did that because of the guardrail that was set was survival. So build your guardrails, make sure you understand what guardrails exist within your agentic AI solutions that your providers are offering. That absolutely is going to be critical for your success.
Sounds like there's a strong lesson there to not make survival the number one priority of your AI. All right, I'm going to shift for a second away from AI. We could talk all day about that, and I have a feeling we're going to come right back to it. But just to ask a slightly different question, we're seeing global macroeconomic uncertainty, largely influenced by U.S. trade and tariff policies and the rapidly changing situation there. And we're hearing from a lot of clients that their priorities are shifting because of that. They're looking to preserve capital. They're looking to reduce OpEx. They're looking to take a posture that could allow them to be ready for economic downturns, supply chain cost increases, things like that. So I'm wondering, and I'll start with you, Steve, on this question. Are you seeing that as a trend? Are you seeing cost savings in the contact center as an increasing trend?
Um, there hasn't. I've not seen any very recent data, but certainly, all the data for since the day of the arc has been customer experience is number one, cost of savings are number two or number three or something like that. I think my experience, and yes, we're hearing customers that are concerned about the potential impact there, but at that highest level, and obviously the IMF is saying that the doom and gloom April 25 report says notable slowdown due to uncertainties and so on. However, I'm going to temper that with Gartner still predicting a small increase in IT spend this year. And this is common, right? You use technology to overcome some of those operational costs that you want to lower and so on. And I think about some companies, you go back just 3 years ago in Europe, Aldi and Lidl, um, there's a squeeze on consumer spending. They took that opportunity to accelerate their growth and they started taking share away from supermarket chains, which hasn't gone back. So, some companies will take that opportunity, they will seize that and grow. Not everyone, of course, is going to do that. Some are going to drop back feasibly into, okay, let's look at more operational considerations and things. But, I'm just going to jump on my previous role as an analyst. I went through several recessions and downturns when I was an analyst. And every time I spoke to clients, it was still about investing in technology to achieve either growth or cost savings. So, you know, um, companies are going to struggle for sure. I think if we can be complacent for us in the industry, not complacent, it's the wrong word, but smug. For us in the industry, I think there's still going to be money out there to be spent on initiatives which are either going to be savings or growth. So, I'm not too worried at the moment, at least about that.
Yeah, I think that matches what we've seen historically also. And there's in my 27 career, there's been a lot of economic downturns. There's been a lot of boom times, right? And technology procurement tends to ride steady or increase when business goes down and cost savings becomes a higher priority. Maybe Alex, let me shift to you for just a second. What are some other ways that contact center technology can be leveraged to create operational savings for the organization?
I think the what we've seen in a lot of so kind of echoing to what Steve said, the macro conditions, I think it's increased the scrutiny on projects, but I don't necessarily think it hasn't, at least in my stance, it hasn't killed projects. It's certainly a lot more people are looking at it, right? They want to make sure, like you mentioned, Sean, that businesses are spending wisely and they're not being frivolous with their dollars. But I think that investments in the CX and EX of businesses are still driving very tangible returns. And we've all heard, the hype cycle for AI over the past 2 years have, in a lot of cases, has been, hey, we bought all this AI with big promise and it didn't deliver. I think the AI within the CX and EX space actually does deliver a very real result. And you see that with that being an area of projects that almost every company is dialing in on, right? I think you hear if you're watching the I know you said you want to take a break from AI, but we're right back to it. But it's software development is seeing a huge lift from AI, customer experience and customer support seeing a huge lift from AI. So those investment areas are still driving a big lever here. And then the other piece that we're certainly seeing across the industry is a lot of consolidation of various point solution apps can be brought together into kind of this broader CCaaS, XPaaS platform-based environment, where in some cases companies are consolidating 10, 15 apps down into one or two. And that has a really big result. It might result in a bigger check that you're writing to one vendor, but overall, across your entire P&L, you're seeing a significant reduction in cost.
Nick, I wonder, do you have any tips for how an organization that is looking to generate savings and or value via the contact center, how they would identify those initiatives that make sense and prioritize them?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that, and I got to touch on something else. I think one thing that gets overlooked a lot is that as things transform, when you go to AI, and I touch on this a very little bit about the customer's expectation, but and this term was coined to me by some analyst, I can't remember who, or I'd give him credit, but it's the HX thing. What is the human experience of your employees? One of the best ways to save cost is to retain employees. The life of most contact center agents is only 10 months. 10 months and then you're on it. So you're in that constant cycle of training and hiring. And what gets overlooked is what's the proficiency of an agent that's been there for 1 week or one that's been there for 10 months. Your proficiencies are a lot better. So I think a lot of companies can use the technology. I'm allowing my supervisors, I don't have to listen to calls anymore. The AI can do that for me. So as a supervisor, I can spend more time developing employees and taking those average employees to make them good employees. And that will benefit my company tremendously and they'll feel valued. Some of the things that we're looking at doing, like giving a wellness break. The days are past. I had a customer that once upon a time told me, "Oh, we're going to run an occupancy above 95% because if they burn out, we'll just hire more." After the pandemic, you can't do that. Resources are even harder to find now than they were back then. You need to be concerned for your agents' utilization rates. What about that sentiment? You get that angry sentiment score from a customer, and it's because he was yelling and screaming at your agent and cussing at him. Well, how does the agent feel about that? If you reach out to that agent using AI and say, "Hey, do you need to take a breath? Let's take a breath, gather yourself. We're sorry that customer was a Karen or a Carl. Take a break." That can benefit your company better than almost any technology you can implement for your customers because those employees feel valued. And when they get that offer on LinkedIn to another company, are they going to jump on that right away? Maybe not. They may think, "Man, these people care about me."
Yeah. To that point, there's also the potential of AI coaching real time in those calls. And there's probably also a workforce management play, both, from a cost savings perspective, but also an avoiding employee burnout perspective as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Workforce management is something that's very near and dear to my heart. I've had the privilege of taking two WFM products GA in the marketplace, one for NICE, one here for Zoom. And that space can benefit from AI the most. And it is freeing those supervisors up. The AI tools that they use allow them to coach people better, allow them to manage their teams better. Because one of the biggest problems it's harder to be a supervisor nowadays with so many remote workers. So I can't just walk down the aisles of the contact center and hear things on the call. I need to be more in touch with people than ever before. And that's one of the transformational trends in WFM is to consider everything that's going on as a supervisor, and not only the sentiment score of a customer, which is more quality management side of things, but what about sentiment score of my agents? Are they having a bad day? How can I impact their lives to keep them happy and making my company better?
Great insight. Um, so I've always thought as a marketing guy, to me, I'm a hammer and everything looks like a nail. So I try to look at everything, through marketing and through a brand perspective. And I'm also very data driven. And I feel as though the contact center and all of those customer interactions is probably the largest data set that most enterprises aren't leveraging today. And there's the opportunity, of course, with AI we've talked about a few times here, to tap into that and make that actionable data. So starting with you, Alex, how are organizations using that data more effectively to drive better experiences?
Well, you're exactly right in the sense that it's the never-ending pipe of data. I think you've seen the big open LLM players saying we're starting to run out of they're running out of content on the internet to train their models on. Well, we're getting 22 years of data in a single day that is constantly refreshing. And so the amount of data that exists within kind of that contact center space is huge. When you start to lace it in with the other data points that exist within the business, that's when the secret sauce happens, right? It's being able to, yeah, you can incorporate your CX data with your agents so that you can have a better experience when they pick up the phone. But the real magic happens when you can tie that to what happens when that person walked into that primary care physician office, or they were in a store, were looking at a product, then decided to not buy that product, and they walked out. But they had an interaction with that store manager there, right? Pulling that thread into that contact center piece allows you to have a much better, more well-rounded picture of a customer. And that's where personalization comes into play. And those personalized experiences are what drives the loyalty, right? So great experiences are starting with personalized experiences. And not in a creepy way where like the proactive chat says, "Hey, I saw you were looking at this on the website. Want to buy it?" Like that's a weird way of doing it. But having your agents and having your AIs really know your customers. Hey, I know that you bought this last year and then you bought it again 6 months ago. You're likely to buy it now. Using that data to create those personal experiences are driving long-term customer value because that drives loyalty and memorable experiences.
In order to enable that, you have to have some pretty tight integrations to some other, data silos, right? Your CRM, obviously, and I think most contact centers, that's one of the first things that they need to do, right, is integrate with their CRM. But are you seeing an increase in the marketing automation platforms being automated into the contact center environment?
Absolutely. I mean, I think it's really as the lens is really as much as you can thread in. Let's do it. Not all of it's relevant, but it does help create that holistic customer profile picture. As you start to think about a if you think about it from like a bank and you're going through the process of getting a loan and you're doing all that stuff, but you call in to get a credit card, that loan information might not be super relevant for the agent, but it allows that agent to understand the full picture of, hey, you're probably getting ready to buy a house or buy a car, and you're also talking about this, and maybe I can give you more guidance and more insight to say, hey, don't make a huge purchase on this. Don't go buy this $5,000 TV because you also have a loan application going on at the same time. In the old world where that data is not connected, those are two siloed experiences. But if I think about myself as a consumer of a financial institution, I'm the same consumer and you're the same bank. I want you to know everything about me. And if you're spotting a gotcha, tell me about it. And you can only do that by bringing all those different data pieces together.
Steve, any thoughts on how what are some other applications for leveraging data from the contact center in the enterprise?
Well, yeah, I mean, the data thing is, I mean, I think a lot of this is very aspirational. I mean, I go back to Metrigy's data point that only 34% of companies have integrated their channels. And that's not even starting to talk about the data sets. When we've talked to clients, or sorry, customers about opportunities with generative AI and large language models. The biggest problem is the data. I was speaking with Patrick Quinnan at Gartner just the other day, and he said most companies have a very, very immature approach to data. The data sets are everywhere. They're not integrated. They're not yet looking at what is the structure they should be creating in order to be able to consume or ingest or the gen models can ingest the data to provide the right answers and so on. So I do think it's still very disparate. I mean, Alex mentioned earlier about the multiple different systems all touching the customer and all working individually. The thing we've got to get over is the battleground. I think we need a CXO that's got teeth, someone that can actually, give people objectives and hold them to those objectives. That they might be in different teams, but collectively they've got to work together to start bringing this together so that we can start ingesting all these multiple data points that are most relevant to employees as customers move through their journeys. So I still feel I've also been around a long time and I'm 30 years now. So and it's always been aspirational, and we are getting there. But I do think there's the operational challenge in there as well. So yeah, we can throw technology at this, but if we're throwing technology at a silo, we're never going to achieve what we really need to, which is that end-to-end customer experience. So yeah, we're keep chugging on trying to help companies get there, but it's still a challenge, I think, and it's mostly an operational one.
I think it's good to stay grounded in the sense that, the point of this webinar is what are we seeing mid-year 2025 and how should that impact the rest of the year and 2026 planning? And it sounds like figuring out how to kind of normalize, leverage, integrate your data systems is probably one of those things that needs to make it onto the roadmap. Would you agree?
Absolutely, yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
yep.
And that's definitely one of the things that is absolutely happening to Alex's point earlier about how you might write one vendor a bigger check, but you're saving money overall. Is there absolutely is that move to consolidation. I mean, Zendesk rose to power because they were the first to adopt chats and everything else. And oh, you just keep that Avaya on-prem. We're going to handle your chats for you over here. Customers don't want that anymore. They want consolidated data. They want consolidated reporting and everything else. And it's easier if that's all in one vendor. Um, so if you don't have that, absolutely tying into your Salesforce, your CRMs, all of those things to give a complete picture of what's going on. One of the biggest things in like a performance dashboard from an agent, I could be having a better handle time than my peers. But then when you look at the sentiment score of my customers, they're less happy. Well, the reason I have a better handle time is because they're hanging up quicker because I'm not treating them well. So if you look at a single metric, you're in a problem space. You need that performance dashboard of all the components of CX to tell the true picture on how an agent's doing, what's happening with your customer base.
That's a great point. To make a slight shift, you mentioned Zendesk. Uh, we partner with them. We're hearing that they've got a CX offering now, right? It's not a contact center platform per se, but it has functionality, virtual agents. Um, we are hearing that Salesforce has Agent Force, right? And so they can accomplish something similar there.
Who told you, Matthew McConaughey? He told you?
That's right. He did. Yeah, he gave me a ring and we were watching the game together or whatever. So, we've heard that. I'm starting to see we're a HubSpot shop here, and so I'm starting to see a lot of content about CX coming out of HubSpot, not features per se, but I can't imagine that it's too far behind. So, again, me being the marketing hammer and everything's a nail. Um, are you starting to see an encroachment or a convergence of marketing automation technology? And are there any other places that you're seeing um, contact center or CX technology start to emerge onto the scene? And how should an enterprise or a technology decision maker navigate whether it's better to have that feature or that functionality built in their platform that they're using for their contact center, or as a bolt-on, or coming from their CRM or ticketing system?
I think it depends on the size of the organization. the bigger the company, the more they're likely to move towards companies with best in class sets of capabilities, and they can then afford to put them together. The connectors are there as well, and that fits all. If you go down the lower end of the market, and absolutely, I think yeah, when I was an analyst, Salesforce Service Cloud Voice was selling in at 50 seats. And yeah, and there still is competition there. The Microsoft with Dynamics 365 Contact Center. Everyone is, this market is getting more difficult. Absolutely, we cannot deny that. But I do think that there's a point here that you get to where yeah, we partner with Zendesk. My colleagues here, they partner with Zendesk. So there's a point at which you say, you know what? That product doesn't meet our requirements. We have a workforce engagement management solution. You know what? It doesn't work at 2,000 seats. We partner with Verin or Calabria or something like that. So I think there is still that nobody's looking for a one size fits all. And I think the companies are still going to look at best in class solutions across various product sets. So it's that competition's there. I think the competition's healthy. But I don't think I don't think we're yet there where I can just go to Microsoft and get everything and I'm toast.
I will say one thing, the amount of interest in this space makes it really exciting for us.
Yeah.
It validates that there's a lot of business here, there's a lot of value to be had here. For everybody that's on this webinar or watching it, I mean, this is a really interesting space to be in when you got some of the biggest companies on the planet saying, "Hey, I want to get into that game." Right.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
Amazon Connect is the prime example of that. You have Amazon that was like, wait, and then they started selling forecasting algorithms and whatever else. They had that predictive model, and then they went ahead and dove in to the whole, CCaaS engine. So it's exciting, and as much as we are competitors, we're also friends because we do have customers that will buy a piece here and a piece there, and then we all come together, and we all partner with one another to some extent. So it is a great industry, and you're lucky to be a part of it. If you're listening to this webinar, I'm sure you are.
All right, quick shift. Steve, as companies are starting to, look forward and future-proof the investments that they're making now, what are some of the bigger mistakes that you're seeing them make, and how can they avoid them?
Well, I touched on it earlier, but I'm going to get on my soapbox. I just think it's the siloed approach.
Mm.
I think it's technology. We can do tons with technology, right? We're experiencing that on a daily basis. Things like integrating the channel. If you start from scratch with nothing, you can build a way better solution. And if you've got tons of capabilities built through legacies, the point earlier about Zendesk doing chat and things. None of the PBX vendors ever wanted to do email and chat because it didn't help them sell phones, right? So we created these silos of new products. So I think I see that as still one of the biggest challenges that companies, the technology is there. We are ready to create that consistent look and feel with the data points across multiple points of engagement. Companies have to deal with the politics of that and work out how they can um, downscale some technologies. Feasibly, they'll be removing some product managers of legacy technologies. Well, these things happen, right? But we're there with the technology. I just feel that operationally, there's still quite a bit of work to be done to get there. And for me, that means that screams for a chief customer experience officer that's got the teeth to drive down into the business and get people accountable and making those decisions.
I want to make sure everyone answers this, so let me go to you next, Nick. What are some of the risks, when procuring CX technology, and how do you make sure that you future-proof that technology?
One of the biggest risks is the analysis paralysis. The old marketing adage that, Baskin Robbins and their 41 flavors, the ice cream stop next door that sells 3 flavors outsells them. Because when someone walks in, I got 3 choices, they pick it, they move forward. So understanding your strategy internally and coming up with that layer is really your first step, because you want to limit, if you sit there and analyze everything. And I have one customer that recently told us, turn off all your AI stuff. We have our security. And team is going to go through and do all the analytics to see what this AI stuff's really about. That company is going to get left behind, because they're busy analyzing, is this the right place for my company? And you definitely need guardrails, absolutely, and you need to spend your time there. But if you wait to do the analysis, everyone else is moving forward and you can't afford not to. So plan that for the rest of the year, is dig into the guardrails that you want to set. And when you go to a vendor, talk about those guardrails. Is your agentic AI solution, flexible enough for me to give you guardrails, give you those parameters going in so it'll meet your objectives?
Great point. Alex, how about you?
Mine will be a slightly different lens. I'm a big advocate when talking with customers to think about platform and not product. I think the industry is moving so quickly that if you're investing in a platform that's modular and composable, you future-proof yourself organically. If you buy a product, that product undoubtedly will be outdated within the next year, just at the pace and the speed. And so I think about that as customers look at, CX components, but certainly as they look at AI components, as they look about the speed in which new models are coming out, and at which, at what point Anthropic's going to have a better model than OpenAI, at what point Gemini is going to supersede whatever Microsoft calls theirs, Copilot, all of these different components. And so I would be an advocate to say in the CX and EX world, you need a platform that's able to plug all of those in on a whim. And when one becomes the superior, you're not locked to one legacy model for the next 4 years, because then you're going to be unintentionally left behind. And so I think about that from a almost a platform over product, and being able to be very composable, be very nimble as this space is going to evolve like wildfire over the next couple of years.
Absolutely. Nick, what should CX leaders be prioritizing in the second half of 2025 to stay competitive? I think we hit on a lot of it, but is there something new or something that you want to make sure you reiterate?
I mean, the big thing is understanding the space that you play in. And I agree with Alex completely. I mean, AI is going to be a player until the next big thing comes about, just like, the IVR trees were the thing, and then it was bots, and now it's AI. And as the everything continues to evolve, concentrate on the connections that connecting to your customers, and those connections matter. Whether that's through the platform and how you want to do it, those connections, the technology behind those connections might change and morph, but the connections is really where your business resides in, and focus on that, and focus on the expectation of the customer is that things will be more simple. Don't get caught up in the complexity of the solution. And I'm in WFM, which is one of the most complex solutions in the CX environment, but it has to be simple and easy, because that's what the expectation of AI is delivering to everyone is, I can ask any question and get an answer of how to rebuild an engine.
I think it's so important. I just want to reiterate what you said about connections, and it's come up a couple of times in previous questions, which is, technology is here to serve humans, right? And we can't lose sight of that. This isn't technology for the sake of technology. It's not here to serve the enterprise. It's here to serve the stakeholders, the people, whether they're employees or whether they're customers or anyone in between. We can never lose sight of that. And I think that as long as that's your guiding principle, you're going to make smart decisions about the technology that you're investing in. Would you guys agree with that?
Absolutely, 100%.
All right, Steve, how about you? What are the priorities aside from data?
Well, data is a huge priority. I think companies, if they really want to invest heavily in generative models, we can see the examples we can offer, the use cases and the demos, it's great. But if companies really want to do that well, they need to invest in understanding how they need to build the structure of their data. So that's one thing. I think that's something absolutely they have to focus a lot on, and not underestimate the amount of manpower they need to do that as well. I'm gonna just jump back on design your self-service experiences from the customer perspective, not the operation. If you start out with cost savings for the business, just scrap that. throw it away and tell them to start again. It has to come from the customer. And I think the other thing is actually going to be, we're seeing this now. Last year it was, hey, get rid of all your staff, AI will do the job. Oh my goodness, that was wrong. We now need people with the right skills. So investing in those people to ensure that they do have the skills, especially as as self-service will start dealing with the simpler activities. We need the staff to deal with the more complex, and also have the empathy to deal with scenarios where the bot goes bad, and so they need to drop out from a bot into an employee.
Yeah, I think it's worth saying too that in the context of cost savings being a priority, and you're saying make investments in people, that might sound counterintuitive, but those contact center interactions are also an opportunity for product development, which you might be able to discover new product opportunities, which can open up new markets and generate new revenue. Feature development, which could give a strategic advantage and help you generate more revenue. It could coach for upsell, cross-sell opportunities as well. So there is a revenue component to these contact center interactions.
Number two priority for customer service leaders when Gartner surveyed, number two priority was grow the business. Now, obviously, with the downturn in the economy, etc., are we going to have a downturn? The outlook is not great. That might shift a little bit, but Lidl and Aldi did it, right? They said, "Hey, let's grow through this." And so I agree. I think those opportunities are there for sure.
Sure. Alex, priorities for 2026?
I think I think that enterprise leaders need to be thinking about agentic. I think if you're not, you will be left behind. And so that doesn't necessarily mean you have to deploy it customer facing, but I think you need to be thinking about it, experimenting with it. When you look at the efficiency gains, obviously the end product from an agentic system is kind of that semi-autonomous or fully autonomous world where it's making decisions based on goals. But the other massive impact that it's having is how quickly that can be done. Building a deterministic bot would take months to build, program, design, test, deploy. Building a agentic bot, LLM based bot, was done in weeks. The agentic ones are done in minutes. I mean, it is remarkable how quick it's being brought to life. Now, we happen to live and work in an industry that has generally been a lagging industry. 50% are still running on-premise environment. So is it going to be adopted next week? No. But as an enterprise leader, I think you need to be thinking about it the rest of this year and into next year and start to get some footholds there.
In light of that statistic that you just threw out, I think we'd be remiss to not say, if you are on-prem, then 2026 priority should be
Yeah.
Get off.
moving to the
Yeah.
cloud.
All the fun stuff that's coming, you don't get to take part in if you don't get to cloud.
That's right. All right, we've got one question left, so I just want to tell the audience now would be a great time to drop some questions if you have it into the chat here. Last question. I'm going to start with you, Nick. We're going to go round robin. What's one piece of advice you would offer to organizations looking to build a CX strategy that not only that not only responds to current trends but stands the test of time?
Focus on your people first. A happy agent is going to better serve your customers, is going to better serve you because they're going to stay longer and be more loyal. If you focus on your internal employees first, that is the biggest indicator in your organization.
Steve?
I'm going to change that slightly. I agree, but I'm going to say listen to your customers. So I mentioned it earlier about voice of the customer. I do believe, what we really want are effortless experiences, right? If we have to do something, we just want it to be done simple. That's really where we should be focusing, customer effort score, not CSAT and things. So I really feel that if we continuously listen to the customer through those authentic interactive channels, we're going to get insights that we never would get otherwise. And we can use those to then make the changes, whether it be to reskilling staff, whether it be to problems with products, policies, also everything just surfaces because customers don't give you that in a form or an IVR survey, but they will. They will tell the employee on the phone or in the chat channel. So I believe voice of the customer, go large on voice of the customer and understanding what's going on a daily basis.
Alex?
I think the I would ensure that your organization elevates CX to a top priority item. I think in a lot of these, especially in large enterprises, historically has always been a, secondhand back office. It's gotta be there. There's some forward-leaning enterprises that understand the value of CX and understand that it can be a profit generator, it can be a business growth. But I think you've got to be loud and putting that at the top of the agenda because it is that centralized hub between all of these different spokes. Steve's talking about all of the different components, that voice of the customer that sits in all of these places. It all comes together in that contact center space, whether it's an actual contact center or it's just the concept of a contact center. At the end of the day, that is your customer engagement strategy. And so if that is not coming up in every executive meeting, in every board meeting as a critical piece of my strategy, then you as a CX leader need to be yelling louder to say, we've got to have this be front and center around every conversation.
That's a great point. And you mentioned communicating up to the board. I just want to ask also, do you guys have any tips for the leaders here on this call that do need to communicate why they're making investments in the contact center space or in CX, and what that value is going to be and how they're going to generate ROI when they're communicating up to, say, the C-suite or the board?
I think that, I'll jump in first and then Nick and Steve as well, because you guys have mentioned it, but I'll say we run an internal annual report and these guys have all mentioned it, but the annual global attrition rate's 38%. So within 2.5 years, everyone's gone and you're hiring everyone again, right? So we've all mentioned that already. And 77% of consumers have admitted to leaving a brand after 5 bad experiences or less. Like you got to get this right. There's as customer expectations continue to rise, loyalty will be frailer than ever before. So you've got to be able to nail that. And the other thing about loyalty is that a consumer that has a bad experience, that has a bad, product defect or has to reach out to you. They can drop down because of that product defect and leaving your interaction actually leave with a higher score, a higher sentiment value than somebody that never had the issue to begin with. I mean, your customer could be sitting at a 90, but the person that has a bad experience and then comes to you and gets a great experience, they're going to leave it at a 95. So you gotta be able to nail that. And I think there's a ton of ROI that comes in actual tangible fewer checks that you're writing and money that you're saving, but there's a huge component in the people that you're saving and the long-term customer value.
I love those points, both of them, because customers expect things to go wrong. Things are going to go wrong, right? That's just baked into the expectation. It's how you handle the situation when it goes wrong that makes or breaks that interaction. And I used to be a chef a long time ago before the age of social media. And, we would always say someone leaves happy, they're going to tell one person. Someone leaves upset about the experience that they had, they're going to tell 10. And now amplify that by, 10 orders of magnitude because of the way the algorithms work and just how quick and easy it is for someone to put it out on the platform that they've built with their followers. So you really do need to be careful about those interactions, and you're going to get fewer people singing your praises than you are going to get people complaining. So make sure you make the most out of those opportunities. Um, okay. Did I get through everybody there? Anyone else want to respond on the communicating to the board or to the
If I may, just to
please.
Alex's point, I think the data things. There's no point telling the board that, hey, we achieved this level of average handle time and we satisfied this many. That's just operational metrics. What they want to be doing is going out and saying, do you realize that 30% of our inquiries last week was because of a bad product that you launched, because of bad messaging on the website? So what the service organization can do as the hotbed, the listening point for the customer, is tell the board and the business how much money they're all costing the company. And so I think those sorts of metrics become far more valuable, and certainly, wake up the eyes of the CEO and the CFO, etc. And that this sort of insight is going to get. We always believe the CX leader should have a seat at the top table. And sometimes that's just aspirational and oh, get out of here, I can't do that. Well, if you're presenting the right data consistently and with suggestions on how to resolve this, then you're adding so much more value to the business. And I think that sort of those sorts of uh, opportunities do exist. And wish everyone well with them.
Yeah. And if you don't have a seat at the table at the moment, building alliances with people that do, like the CIO or the CMO that are impacted, right? Other stakeholders in the organization might get you there for now. Nick, any commentary on this?
I mean, what Steve says is correct to a point. I generally don't go tell the board that of something they did wrong. I try to talk to individuals first and soften that blow, but it's absolutely critical for them to understand what you're doing with the technology, or they just see the cost item on the line on the line itemization. So they have to understand the benefit that went into that cost, and then so that's where you should focus your the data is not, oh, we resolved we took these interactions offline and we handled those with bots. Well, that's a minimal solution, but what were the outcomes of those bot interactions? We don't do enough analysis on that. Oftentimes, oh, where they were self-serve, so we're good. Well, were they self-served, or did they hang up and call that competitor that might be easier to deal with? So that's my only addition there.
Appreciate that. We don't have any questions in the Q&A, so I'm going to give you guys a rapid fire question. Nick, one tip for making a great brisket.
It's season your meat the night before. Put it in the fridge, let the seasoning soak into that meat. And that's true for steaks, true for anything. Before you, not chicken as much, but your beef, 100% season it the night before.
And slow and low. Alex, I think I see a Formula One car over your shoulder there. Is Max going to Mercedes?
That's a good question. It's actually an Indy car. It's a Genesis Indy car.
Oh, all right.
But no, Genesis we're a Ferrari aligned sponsor, so I tend to skew now to Lewis and Charles. So
My favorite car. I'm excited about that too. And Steve, I see quite a few books. I've got a few of my own. One recommendation for a book everyone should read?
I'm going to suggest Stephen Leather's series of Spider Shepherd. There's a whole series of them. It's London based. He's ex-SAS officer. There's a whole series of them, and I just feel they grip you within the first few minutes, and you just can't put the book down. And for me, that's something, because I get bored pretty quickly.
So it's the Jack Ryan, but of London.
Yes, a Jack Ryan of London. Yes, exactly. Yeah, very good, Nick. Yes, I like that one. Yeah. Stephen Leather and the Spider Shepherd series.
Spider Shepherd series. Great. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time and your expertise. Appreciate it. Thanks to the audience, and look forward to catching you guys on the next webinar. Thanks.
Thanks for your time.